I keep meeting seven-figure online business owners who are miserable, unhappy, and unsatisfied with their businesses. And this really bothers me, mostly because it's completely unnecessary. I see people living other people's dreams, chasing other people's numbers, and not being in touch with what it is that they want themselves. And so I wanted to make this video to take you through why it is that seven-figure business owners who have seemingly won at life can get themselves to a stage where they are utterly miserable and want to pack it all in. I've titled this video, Don't Scale Your Business. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to scale your business. I have, many other people have. The whole point of this video is to be a counterweight to the prevailing wisdom that all business owners should scale, should 10x, should shoot for the moon. I think people don't understand what that actually involves and the sacrifice they have to make if they want to pursue that. All they see is the big numbers and the glory and the kind of reams of podcasts that just glorify those people who have had fantastic success outwardly. In case you don't know me, my name is Olly Richards. I'm the founder of StoryLearning.com. It's a multi-million-dollar online education business. I'm also a mentor and advisor to other online entrepreneurs. One of which I was speaking to the other day, and I thought I would use this person as a case study. Now, I'm going to exaggerate for effect to prove the point, but it's mostly, pretty much accurate what I'm going to show you here. So this person has an online education business that's doing low seven figures in revenue. It's mostly a lifestyle business, like most online education businesses are. I'm generally not speaking to the startup crowd here. This is people who have built education businesses, usually off the back of their personal brand at first, and then over time learned to grow businesses, scale a team, etc. And the business model is mostly a kind of passive course model with some human element to it as well, but it's mostly your kind of fairly typical online lifestyle business type thing. Done fantastically well, grown it to a low seven-figure amount, but is really, really unhappy, anxious, doesn't enjoy the business anymore. Doing what I do now, working with entrepreneurs, I'm starting to see these patterns, which are scarily familiar because I've been through a lot of this stuff myself. And I thought that it was just me who was a bit weird. Turns out a lot of people have this stuff. And I think the reason this happens is that no one prepares us for running businesses with large amounts of money going back and forth. It breaks our mental model of money in the world. It breaks our notions of what we've been conditioned to believe we can achieve, what we can have in life. And it's a very lonely, isolated place to be running a business like this. So this is the situation, and this person has been hanging around in a lot of good quality business circles. I heard some of the advice that they've been getting, and it's good. But when you hang around in these circles, what happens inevitably is you come and you say, I want more money, I want to grow my business. And so what's the reply? Inevitably, well, you've got to scale, man. You've got to 10x. And then you start to have these conversations around, well, what's your number? What's the number at which you would kind of hang up your boots and retire? What are we all doing this for? What are we aiming for? And I hate this question because it makes the assumption that we're doing something that we don't want to do so that we can get to a place where we will then be happy. But that's bullshit. Life doesn't work like that. Instead, we should be figuring out how we can be happy now, how we can live in alignment with our life and business, family, customers, all of that right now. And if you do that, then there's no reason that you should ever sell up, hang up your boots and just go and sip martinis on the beach. I think we get sucked into this kind of like a very kind of type A conversation around scale, success, money. And the thing is that when you're in that environment, you start to feel stupid or worthless or just inferior for not being part of that. It's like a black hole that kind of sucks people in. So my friend has been thinking a lot about this, and they've decided that they want to scale their business from 1 million to 5 million in revenue, and they want to achieve a $15 million net worth, because that in their mind has become a number at which they could then retire and enjoy life. Now, if you have $15 million net worth, that is a very large annual amount that you could draw. Most people don't need anywhere near that amount. I'm not saying it's not a good number to aim for, not at all, but it's just that, is that really your number? Do you really need this? And if you go through this process of figuring out what your number might be, then you often find that a lot of people find they've got the potential to do that right now in front of them if they just move the chess pieces around the board a little bit. I used to think in terms of a number. I don't do that anymore. I think much more in terms of cash flow. So cash flowing assets, things that can generate X amount of dollars per year, because what we want to aim for ultimately is not that big number. It is the amount of money that we need to live our dream lifestyle. Anyway, we're going to get a little bit distracted here. So that's what my friend has now decided that they want to aim for. And they're not there yet. They have a business that's at the bottom end of this, and they're nowhere near their net worth number. And because they have fixated on this as the goal, they are now unhappy. If you allow yourself to fixate on these future-based outcomes, then you will only be able to live unhappily in the present, because there is a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. This is the premise of The Gap and the Gain, a fantastic book by Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy, that they observed that so many high-achieving entrepreneurs fall into. It's the gap between where they are right now and where they want to be. And as long as that gap exists, it's very difficult for you to be happy. Well, in fact, being happy is very easy, but what tends to happen is people are unhappy because they're fixated on what they don't have. The point of that book, which is well worth reading, is that you should measure backwards. You should measure where you have come from. And most high-achieving entrepreneurs, if you just pause, take a second to look how far you've come, that should really give you all the satisfaction that you need in life. But that is a digression. So this is now the goal of my friend, and as a result, they are miserable. Just to put a pin in this situation, here is someone who has built a 7-figure business. They're generating over $1 million a year. By any reasonable measurement, they have won at life. Are there people on the My First Million podcast who make more money? Yes. Are there people who are significantly richer? Yes. So how is it that someone can be making 7 figures but still be unhappy? This is, from the outside, if you're not making 7 figures, this looks like pure insanity. You probably give anything to trade places with someone doing over $1 million, right? Well, let me show you the maths for how this breaks down, for how someone making $1 million a year can be unhappy. So let's assume 1.2 million in annual revenue, and let's say that the business is turning over a 30% margin. We're going to come back to that later because that's potentially an issue. So that leaves you with 360,000 in earnings at the end of the year. After you pay your tax, you're left with 250,000. Let's say you take 100,000 in dividends for yourself to live. Then when all is said and done, you've paid your lifestyle costs, you've paid your taxes, you've paid your team, all of that, you're left with about 150k of retained cash at the end of the year. So the headline is you're doing 1.2 million in annual revenue, and at the end of the year, after all that hard work, you've got 150k left in the business to show for it. Now, is that good or is that bad? And this is the pivotal question. I mean, why we even need to label it, I don't know, but we do, right? It's super important how we react to this statement right there. On the plus side, you've got a business that hopefully you like, you're paying yourself decent money, and you've got 150k left over at the end of the year. That, for almost anyone on this planet, is damn good, and you can really enjoy your life in that kind of situation, right? Even if all you do is let that 150k build up, even if you don't really reinvest all that much, you're in a great situation. But you could tell a different story and say, well, I'm unhappy. And why would you be unhappy? Because although having 150k left over at the end of the year is great, it's going to take you a long time to get to your number of 15 million. You probably won't get there, right? And so you can convince yourself that the business is not big enough, you're not good enough. And so the only solution is to scale. And that's what everyone's telling you at your masterminds. That's what your business coaches are telling you. You've got to scale, because in theory, it's simple. 5x the business, 10x the business, you keep 10x the profit, right? Not the case. We'll see why that is in a second. So let's say that you've got a business where you've built your business mostly on the back of organic traffic, maybe blog, SEO, YouTube, podcast, whatever. You then sell mostly digital products with maybe a couple more. Your standard personal brand education type business. When you try to scale, here's what happens. You discover that your content doesn't scale. If you've got 1 million followers on YouTube, you can't just magically have 2, 3, 4, 5. You can over time, but it's difficult to influence. So your content doesn't scale the way that you want it to. You try Facebook ads and you realize it's bloody hard. And so you lose a bunch of money on paid acquisition. You put $1 in and you get 50 cents out. What happens is that when you run your organic funnels, your organic content, your squeeze pages, your email funnels, whatever, that works so well to your warm traffic, guess what? They don't work to cold traffic because they've not been designed to convert cold traffic. So you now have to start from scratch. Your business model isn't fit for purpose because all those lovely $100, $200, $300 courses that you've been selling, suddenly cold audiences won't buy them because they're not ready yet. You haven't warmed them up. So you realize this whole business model I spent 10 years building is now no longer fit for purpose. So I've got to rebuild the way that we make money. You do all of this. Your expenses go through the roof. Your profit margins go to the floor. And you don't have a very happy life. Talk to anyone who has been through this process, who's tried to scale their business. This or some variation of this is what happens. Does this mean you shouldn't do it? No. If you are ambitious and you know that you want to get there, like many, many entrepreneurs in the past have, then this is what you've got to go through. And as long as you're willing to do that, you're willing to pay the price, you know what's in store for you, then fine, you go for it. The point I want to make in this video is you have a choice. You have an option. You don't have to do what everyone is telling you to do at your high octane mastermind. You can choose a different path. And if you're enjoying this content, by the way, I've written a case study of my business. It's very long, it's 118 pages, but it goes into a lot of depth about how my business operates. A lot of people find this very, very useful. If you're growing an online business, it might be worth reading. You can find it at ollyrichards.co along with my newsletter and everything else. Anyway, I think what makes this hard for people is that if you haven't been through this scaling process before, you cannot see what's coming around the corner. And so the point I want to make here is that there is very much a choice. And when you're making 7 figures in revenue with your business, you can have this life and you can also have this. It's up to you. So why is it that this is such a, why does this kind of scale bottleneck problem challenge happen? I think it's helpful to understand where it is that the business model that many of us who work online have naturally caps out, because this contextualizes where the problems come from. So most education businesses that have come up over the last 10 years or so have a combination of two things: a dynamic founder, the personal brand is how it starts, someone starts a YouTube channel one day, and then high traffic, and that comes from usually mastering one particular content platform. When I started Story Learning, I was the founder. Don't know how dynamic I was, but I was the guy, right? And I started by blogging, so I got a bunch of SEO traffic. So my secret weapon was I was me, and I had expertise in language learning, and I had a bunch of traffic from my blog. That was what got me started. These days, many, many people are coming up on YouTube. More and more, you've got TikTok, you've got people with massive audiences on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, it doesn't matter. But this is the kind of typical duo you've got. You've got a founder and you've got high traffic. So using this formula, your typical kind of personal brand, lifestyle business, influencer formula, you can quite easily build a business to $500,000 in revenue. That is not too difficult if you devote yourself to doing this for 5 years. In some cases, people can get to a little bit higher, $1 million, maybe even slightly more. When that happens, it's not normal. It is because someone has done very well on a particular platform. We all know of YouTubers who have just exploded. They've got millions of followers. So they've got the dynamic founder and very, very unusually high traffic. And someone in that situation can get to $1 million or more, basically just by themselves as a solopreneur, maybe a sort of skeleton team of VAs or something. So pretty normal to get here. You may get here if you do very well. That's kind of the natural upper limit of what a solo person can do. So then what happens is you get to this stage and you want to grow. So what do you need to do? You need to do more stuff. That could involve making more products, doing some kind of coaching, or however you decide to scale out your business model. But inevitably, you need to add team. With a solo founder person plus team, you can then get to 2 or 3 million fairly naturally with an extension of the same kind of passive business model, like selling digital products. So back in the day at Story Learning, we got to this kind of mark with the same business model that we always had, just selling courses. We're very, very profitable. We had a team, we were doing this kind of level of revenue. And then when you get there, again, you've got this same decision, like, am I happy or am I not? I don't mind saying, when I got here, and I went through the same psychological roller coaster as my friend who I've been describing here in this video. The reason I can talk about this is because I've been there. I know what it's like. So you can get to this kind of level with a fairly skeleton crew, with a fairly passive business model and very high profit margins. It's pretty good. You'd like to think that most people at that point would say, hell yeah, I'm just going to kick back and take my 7 figures of profit and just do something fun with my life. But do we do that? Of course we don't do that, do we? We are unhappy because we've got in our head that this guy exited for 100 million, and this guy has told me the other day in the pub that his number is 15 million, and we're still a long way away from that. So we convince ourselves we want more. It's natural. We've evolved as humans to not be satisfied. This is what makes this so hard. There's a great book called The Entrepreneur Personality Type on exactly this fact. So we build something amazing and then we're unhappy. So what do? We add more. We say, right, I've got to get from 3 million to 5 million. So we add group coaching, we add paid masterminds, we add cohort-based courses. We start some stupid spin-off agency. We decide to create a certification. Guilty of many of these things. And then we do a good job, we get to 5 million. But at 5 million, what does the business look like? Well, now you've added an absolute ton of costs, infrastructure, etc., etc. So now, yes, you're making 5 million. Congratulations. But you now have a 20% profit margin, which means you're ending the year at 1 million. You pay your tax, you're down to 700. You take a couple of 100,000 for yourself. Your lifestyle expenses by this point have crept up because you feel like you should be living a rich life. So you finish the year with, say, 500k of profit in the business, which again is fantastic. But if you've convinced yourself that your number is 15 million, going to take you a long time to get there, 30 years of more of the same unless you do something a little bit different. And so what happens? Well, you kind of keep pushing and you get the point, right? So there's a comfortable maximum that I see for high-performing online education businesses, which is around this range. For some people, it's slightly less. For some people, it could be slightly more. It depends on the business model that you're running. But don't lose sight of the fact that you can have a $10 million a year business at 10% margins, or you can have a $1.5 million a year business at 65% margins, both of which are realistic, by the way, and they give you the exact same profit at the end of the year. So what do you want to have? Do you want to have the $10 million business that's churning that profit, or the $1.5 billion business that's churning that profit? I mean, it's up to you. Most people blindly chase this out of ego. And yes, it may lead to a higher valuation further down the line, access to a different type of buyer pool, etc., etc. It's a more established business. You're more likely to be able to sell. All of that is true. But to get from here to here is 5+ years of really, really hard work. And people don't understand what they're letting themselves in for when they do that. This business is the business you can sit at the beach and chill. This business is the one where you're in the office every day staring at spreadsheets. I'm not saying which is better or worse, but make your choice for yourself. That's what I'm asking you to do. You have a choice, my friend. I wish I knew this. I did know it intellectually, theoretically. I didn't have the guts to really listen. These days, and I think this comes from having seen a lot of other entrepreneurs struggle and it's kind of normalized it a little bit for me. I have so much more confidence to ask myself, what do I want? So what I want you to take from this video is that you have a choice. And if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, then there's a video right over here where I tell you all about how a $10 million business does email marketing. It's a kind of different topic, but it's a similar deep dive where I've kind of got to get something off my chest. So if you want to check that out, there it is right over there.